I've come to really believe that when we go into a situation thinking that we're broken, that if we share that message with the wrong person, a person who's at a lower state of being, they may actually adopt our low opinion of ourselves and reflect back to us the notion that we're broken because they can't see beyond where they are. So my message, and I stand with this one: no one is broken. If you have a challenge, no matter what it is, reconsider the notion of somehow you're a flawed being, because that's just not possible.
Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I'm Dr. Dawn Earhart Whitty, your guide on a transformative journey of personal development and discussions of universal truths. Join me and a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of love, faith, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life, full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin. Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I am honored today to have with me Dr. Stephen Middleton. He is the author of the new book, Break Free from Emotional Distress. I'm going to read just a little bit from the back of the book of his bio. It's very impressive. From the fields of South Carolina to the halls of Cambridge University, Dr. Stephen Middleton's journey embodies the transformative power of education and resilience. I love that word, resilience. For 4 decades, he has distinguished himself as a professor at leading research universities, conducting scholarly work across 4 continents. His expertise has been sought by prestigious institutions including Cambridge University, the state capitals of North Carolina and Mississippi. In retirement, Dr. Middleton continues to expand his intellectual horizons. He founded the Possibility Action Network, which I have been an honored guest to be on, and serves as podcast host while sharing his media expertise through his book, Grab the Mic, an Insider Guide to Podcasting for Beginners. And today I want to talk about his podcast and also his new book, Break Free from Emotional Distress. Welcome, Dr. Stephen Middleton.
Well, Dr. Don, thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here.
Well, first of all, I would like to know what prompted you, because I've been reading your book. I'm not all the way finished with it, but what gave you the spark? What started you on this journey of writing this book?
Well, as you well know, journaling is important, and I've been dealing with a lot of things personally, and I thought I needed to talk to myself. So the book really began as a message to me about how to resolve some of the things that were bothering me. And as the project expanded, I thought this could be useful to other people. So I connected with some professionals and shared little snippets of the book with them and asked them what they thought. They said, there is something here. And I also checked in with my children because I wanted to make sure that they were okay with the kinds of things that I would share. So first, for me and others saw value in it, and then I decided, after much deliberation, to release it to others, hoping that they'll get something from it as well.
And you know what? That's the most beautiful way to start writing a book. Again, it's to share our aha moments. That's why I call my podcast The Secrets of Being, because I've had those aha moments along the way, the things that we've learned. And today I was scrolling through social media and I saw this quote that said, "The darkest part of your story gave birth to the strongest parts of your soul." And I think you
Mhm.
share a lot of that in this book. So, can you tell me, and again, I don't want to give everything away, and there's a lot of prompts for people to do their own work. So this is a very personal book for people to take away what they need to get from it. But give me a couple snippets from what you want readers to take away from this.
Mhm. Well, one is I want readers to understand that they're not broken. I mean, there's so many things that can happen in the world that reminds us about how we stumbled in life, how we've failed at certain things, how something is wrong with us. I had it told to me. But my message is that there's nothing wrong with anybody. I mean, that's just fact. We are born, we've heard this before. We are perfectly made. That is true. Now, that doesn't mean now that we're the smartest person in the room. It doesn't mean that we have all of the answers to the questions that come to us. But as human beings, there's something marvelous about us. And I think that's fact. And that doesn't change no matter what a person's encounter. So that's my message. In fact, I'll extend it by saying, I've come to really believe that when we go into a situation thinking that we're broken, that if we share that message with the wrong person, a person who's at a lower state of being, they may actually adopt our lower opinion of ourselves and reflect back to us the notion that we're broken because they can't see beyond where they are. So my message, and I stand with this one, no one is broken. If you have a challenge, no matter what it is, reconsider the notion of somehow you're a flawed being, because that's just not possible.
Mm. And I love you talked about our negative self-talk. And
Yeah,
I've talked about this on my podcast before because we all have that inner dialogue. I hope we all do. But
yeah,
sometimes it's the meanest voice of all the voices we hear,
yeah.
the meanest one is ourselves. So
Hmm.
when did you first realize that you were your own harshest critic, and how did you
Yeah,
start getting like I know it doesn't ever go away completely,
yeah,
but
yeah,
how do you overcome that?
yeah. I'm certain that I have a negative self-talk, this negative bias that I mentioned in the book, since forever, since I was a young person. Because most people have that critic telling them, they're not handsome enough. If it's a girl, you're not cute enough, you're not thin enough, all of these kinds of things happening. But I'm gonna tell you a true story. I don't think I wrote it in the book, but I was about 24 years old when I really got this notion that something was telling me something and it wasn't good. It was something that just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, you are not good enough. It really struck. And at the time, I didn't realize that it was simply an internal dialogue that didn't mean anything. But I remember my 24th year. I remember where I was. I was working at Wilberforce University in Ohio, and I was hit with that thought that I could not shake. And that negative thought is something that continued to deepen as I moved along in the world. Yeah, so we all have it. I have it too. I'm so glad it's not as persistent as it used to be. And I'm learning not to believe anything negative about myself, about somebody else that the mind tells me. I mean, I think that's another level of growth. If your mind tells you that somebody else is bad, you got to take a look at the mirror because it's really it's coming out of you. That's what I'm learning, Don, about that.
And where do you think that comes from? I mean, I know negativity bias comes is a survival instinct, right? We hear one negative thing and we cling to that. We could hear 100 positive things, and that one negative thing is going to stick, right? So
Yeah.
where do you think that comes from? Is it society? Is it people around us? Or or what is that? Where does it come from? What do
Yeah,
you think?
yeah, but that's a good question. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not going to pretend, to know the answer to that. But let's face it, no human being on the planet came to this environment with a manual. That means that your parents didn't have a manual. That means that your neighbors, your relatives, your teachers didn't have a manual. So we come with this powerful tool, mind, and we don't know what the heck is going on. So what do we do then? Most people then reach for the lowest hanging fruit. And that low fruit is something like, you're not good enough. I'm not sure if you can do that. What's wrong with you? You messed up. Those kinds of things. And those things become a part of us almost as if we're breathing air until we, and I think, something, I think we get an opportunity in life to make a shift, a pivot. in our own lives. So therefore, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, understands that humans are going to function this way. And this is an opportunity then for growth. Once you start growing, not only are you going to help yourself, but you're going to help those around you because all of us are on this path struggling to climb to discover our true nature. So that's how I would answer that, not as if I am a neuroscientist, but as a human being on this journey called life.
Yes, and you said something, you wrote about a holistic doctor that you met that said something like everybody has dirt on them or everybody gets dirty.
Yeah, yeah. I called her Teresa. And this is, if anyone reads the book, if anyone reads it, that's my first story in the book about Teresa and me. Um, it's really a true encounter. Now, this happened decades ago, a couple of decades ago. I didn't think much of it at the time. But somehow in the back of my mind, her words just continue to ring. And I was contemplating this book and how would I start? What am I going to say? Then she came to mind. Teresa, the person I'm calling Teresa, came to mind, who made the statement, everyone gets dirty. Oh my gosh, that's a true statement. In fact, it's a liberating statement for me because I don't care who you are, could be one of my favorites is former President Barack Obama. I know that Barack Obama, if he lives his life, and he gets dirty too. It's quite a story. And I took that to give one of my first keys here to reconciling yourself with your history, and that is normalizing your life. Everyone gets dirty is a way to normalize, to say, I'm just like Dawn, different paths, different encounters, but I'm a human being just like she is. Normalizing your life is powerful, and I engage this subject of normalizing in the first chapter of this book because I found it to be so important to me. And I give examples of why they're important, individuals that I use to help me normalize my life in the very first chapter. Yeah.
And that not only helps us with our own path and our own journeys, but when we realize that everybody gets dirty, right? Then we can look at somebody else with compassion and empathy and understand that, you know what, they're trying the best they can, to get through this thing called life without that manual
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have. So I love that you said that, and that makes me feel like, again, it normalizes the human experience and it
Mhm.
helps us not be so hard on ourselves and not be so hard on others.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you want to show compassion for yourself, and that's very hard. It was hard for me. Oh my goodness. Ooh. It was painfully hard to me to show compassion for myself. It was easier to show compassion for others, but when you normalize your life, if you get trapped in, a stupid state, as a friend of mine calls it, get caught in that. If you're able to normalize your life to regain yourself, then of course you'll see that you're just like everybody else. We're all doing the best that we can. Now, saying that if we deliberately cause harm and say, yeah, I'll normalize my life, but that's a different matter altogether. We're not talking about the freedom to hurt, to injure. If you want to figure out if you're in a lower state or high state, look at your actions, whether you're deliberately trying to harm another or whether you're trying to serve others, to lift others up or not. An evolved person will try to uplift the other. I mean, that's the way they live their lives. A person who's in a stupid state, who don't know who they are, will probably try to hurt somebody else, but it's a reflection of who they are at at that time in their journey.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps. I mean, that is so powerful. And you use your life as a beacon to lift others. As I
Yeah.
mentioned, I was on your podcast, the Possibility Action Network, and I want to know. I know you have uplifting, inspiring stories and talk about possibility and purpose and things like that. What gave you the idea? What sparked the idea to start that? How's it going? And tell us more about that.
Yeah, I retired from academic work 7 years ago, and I wanted to do something. I dabble as an entrepreneur. In fact, I still dabble as an entrepreneur. I'm working on another book project, a biography, and I wanted to know what can I do? What can I do? My son said, "Hey, you like to talk sometimes, so why don't you try social media?" I'm thinking, that's not for me. social. It's not, I'm an academic. That's not for me. In fact, I don't think I could have done this 20 years ago. But anyway, I I entered a business challenge on some group, and they said to post something on social media for 14 consecutive days. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? Well, so I tend to when I give talks, they tend to be motivational, inspirational. I aim to uplift. So I began to present talks like that. 14 consecutive days nonstop. After the first challenge, I did stop. And then I took another challenge. And they said, 14 consecutive days, or how many days they said. And I did it, and I just liked it, and I just continued. And then I began to ask myself, if I wanted to do a podcast, what would I call it? What's true for me? What do I stand for? Do I stand for conflicts? Do I fight with people? Do I want to cuss people out or whatever it is? And, I want to uplift people. I want to show people, I want to point to possibility. And so I doodled along with that, and possibility action was taken. And somehow I came to Possibility Action Network. And then, I've missed one episode over the last 4 years, and I was doing a pivot from long form videos to something different. And I wasn't sure of that direction, but I published today, so I'm back on track.
Well, that again, I'm so grateful. And you hit a big milestone with your podcast. How many subscribers do you have?
Yeah, over 100,000, over 100,000.
Congratulations.
Oh,
That is
thank you so much for that.
a huge deal. So I like tell me, as a and this is the first one-on-one interview I've done on my podcast. We usually do
Okay.
panels. I'm still going to do my panels. I love plant panels, but I just thought, you know what? I know so many amazing people doing amazing
Mm,
things. I want to interview them. I want to talk to them, pick their brain, have them share some of their aha moments.
mm.
So you're my first one. Thank you for doing that,
Okay.
for agreeing to be here. But talk to me about like something that's happened on your podcast that's really memorable, you didn't see coming, um, just something from your podcast that
Mm,
you wouldn't have known had you not stepped out and taken that
mm.
step to.
Hmm. Yeah, that's boy, that's a tough one. One moment. Okay, so I was interviewing a medical doctor whose specialty is psychiatry. I'm not going to give her name, but she wouldn't mind. She wouldn't mind giving her name. Her name is Dr. Anna Yusim. And she wrote a fantastic book called Fulfilled. Now, this is a medical doctor who is highly spiritual, and we were having a conversation about various things, including adversity. Now, in interviewing her, and just talk with her, I shared her story. And I'm going to talk about this story on the next edition of my podcast about someone who was shot when he was 14. He was shot by his stepfather, and because of the injury, he was blind and has lived his life as a blind man for the last 44 years. And then I said that because this individual wanted me to ask her a question, and her response is a little bit like yours, And so I posed the question to her, and my friend was just simply saying that he didn't feel any anger, he was able to forgive and move on. And when I shared that with her, and then asked the question that this person wanted me to ask, Dr. Yusim, I could see her eyes. She just, it really stunned her. So that's when I became aware that our conversations can have an impact. She was impacted by that. And she was also encouraged by this individual's ability to forgive, not to excuse, but to actually forgive. And that's what this person devotes his life to now, trying to find ways not to engage conflicts, but find ways to help people resolve them. And he subscribes to this notion that it's better to come out from the world, because if you're in the world, what you're going to find are people who want to fight each other, condemn each other, criticize each other. And of course, when we do that, we all go down. We don't go up together, we go down together. So that's something that was memorable for me, just to see her touched by a story. And stories do touch us, do reach us. And that's why we do the work that we do, right?
Yes, and that story will stay with me forever because I can't
Mm,
even imagine. forgiving somebody that tried to kill you and then took your sight. That
Yeah.
that wow, that's powerful. I need to
Yeah.
talk to that
Mm.
person.
Uh,
So when I
yeah.
was reading the back of your book, resilience is a word that you
Yeah.
use. Resilience is a word that I wrote down a few weeks ago when I was thinking about topics I wanted to talk about because again, one of the reasons I even started this podcast is to help people get through life's challenging times, right?
Yeah.
And when you share your own personal story, it helps others say, "Oh, I'm not alone. Somebody else has experienced that. If they can get through it, I can get through it too." Can you talk about a time that, you didn't know that you could get through something and you
Mm.
did? How did you do that? How did you find the resilience? And then what did you learn
Mm.
from it?
Yeah. Well, that's oh goodness. Let me see if I can find one thing to isolate one thing. I'll tell you what. I'll start though with a story that I've mentioned in this book. I just mentioned this individual. I'll tell you who he was now. My uncle, my great uncle, but he taught us to call him uncle. So my uncle. Um, we grew up, in a rural area of South Carolina. Now this is like 60 years ago. I'm referring to 60 years ago. And this man is with me as if we were just together this morning, right? So he was physically different. That is, he was under 5 feet tall. He's not a big man. Um, he was had a broken back. I don't know what stage in life when his back got broken. His feet were going in opposite directions. The left foot went left, the right foot went right. And when he walked, when he moved, he kind of had a waddle, just trying to keep himself upright. And he told me a story, and this story is something that's been with me for over 60 years. I told it to my kids. I tell it to anyone who's willing to listen. And I'm sharing it now. He said that when he was a young man, seeking a job, he went out into the sawmills, in South Carolina, the tall pines in the forest, and these big guys, bigger than him, trying to push him out of the way. But he planted himself. He steadied himself. Those guys were not able to move him. So the foreman spotted him. And these other guys are trying to get the attention of the foreman. The foreman spotted him and said, I'm going to hire that man. I'm going to hire this man. And he hired him. And that individual went on to get a better job at the paper mill in Charleston, South Carolina. He was the first individual in my community to buy a truck, to own a truck. He was the first one I knew of that had a mailbox. All of us got our mails through him. He developed a powerful persona, a powerful voice. So what does this have to do with resilience? I saw an example of resilience. Life dealt him lemons, but he made lemonades. So in my own life, then, gosh, I've had so much adversity, so much adversity. I've had to overcome so much. So resilience to me is that ability to bounce back in the face of your challenge. We don't have, gosh, I would not have chosen Dawn the stuff that I encountered. Now, people have been look at my life experience and read something in this book because I share a lot. I said, what? But something, I didn't pick those experiences. I didn't choose them. I didn't desire them. I'm not happy about that. But I found a way to bounce back, and that's what I think of when I consider the word resilient or resilience.
And it takes a very strong person and a strong will to be able to get back up every time life has dealt you something like that. What is, and this, I've asked people that have gone through, a lot of adversity in their life, what made you choose to get back up and turn your life into success versus somebody else who uses a similar experience to like make that be a crutch for them for the rest of their days?
Mm.
Like, what is that
You
thing?
know,
I don't know if there's an answer to this. Maybe somebody knows.
yeah,
What is that thing?
yeah, yeah. I'll tell you this. That is true. I just don't know what it feels like to not desire. I don't know what that's like to not want to. I really don't. I've always had this thing that I want to. I mean, like I'm retired. I'm writing, I've been doing research on a guy, a biography, and I'm working on it every day because I have this desire. Where does it come from? For me, it seems to be just within. It's just something within me now. I've encountered a lot of stuff. I'm saying that myself, so no one can see this podcast. So he's not admitting that he had stuff. I encountered a lot of them, but I still have this desire, to move forward. I have this desire to do good. I have this desire to serve. I have this desire to say to people, hey, even though other people are saying that you can't make it because of this crowd or this group or your background or what the others are going to do to stop you, I just don't feel that way. This is just something that comes from it. In fact, with this book of mine, this current project I'm working on, I said, I decided because I've been working, what are you going to publish this? I don't know. I'm going to publish it. I'm going to find a publisher. I don't know. So last week I said, okay, but I've published with a couple of university professors. I'm going to pitch this idea to them. So I wrote the editor. I said, look, I did this book with you all, and would you be interested in this one? The editor says, we don't do biography, so it wouldn't be a good fit for us. And I said, okay, I'll reach out to the next press. And he said, yeah, we do biographies and we would love to see it. So it's just something that comes from within for me. And I think that's the thing that I'm grateful for maybe the most because with all of the obstacles I've encountered in life, I've never lost the passion to go forward. I mean, in relationships, in job situations, in conflicts with other people, I've never lost this desire that I want to go forward. And go forward, I'm using a word that a friend shared with me, without scorn. To go forward without saying, that person is responsible for all of my trouble, with scorn toward that person. To go forward with scorn toward a group of individuals. I want to go forward with love, with joy, with compassion, with optimism about life for the good of all. So that's where I am with that.
Wow. Well, and you said something very important when you're talking about when you pitched your book, and I think I really want to highlight this. Sometimes we have an idea, and somebody will poo-poo it. Somebody will say, "Oh, you can't do that," or somebody will say no, and then we get defeated, and we're like, "Oh, it's not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to do it. Not going to pursue this." But you kept going, and you pitched it to
Yeah,
somebody else, and I
yeah,
think that's a huge takeaway for people. What is it they say? J.K. Rowling, like presented her idea to her book to how many different publishers who turned her down, and then look at where she is today with how many books and movies. So like
yeah,
don't take no as defeat. Keep going. If it's
yeah.
something burning a passion in your heart, keep going for it.
Mhm. Indeed, keep going for it. It's a great time to write stuff. If you got something to share, keep going. And even if this public, I'm going to submit a proposal in about 2 months or so, full proposal. But if they decline, there are other publishers out there. So yeah, I've never been worried about that.
And not just for books, right? But for anything. For anything. You start a podcast, you don't have 100,000 subscribers in day one or even year one, right? That
Yeah,
takes time, it's consistent action. And again, it's you're doing it for a reason, not the subscribers, not for all the
yeah,
book sales, but you have a message in your heart that you want to
yeah.
share.
Yeah, and just it's important to be human, to
Mm.
be imperfect, to do it scared, to do it as you do it. I made my pivot today, and I had enough pivot of my podcast. I'm going, slightly different direction, same kinds of things, but slightly different. I had enough material for at least 30 minutes.
Well,
But I did it in just a few minutes, and I thought, that's good. I'm gonna let it fly. So when you take the side of perfection and say, I want to be of value. I think that's the thing. I want to be of value, and I thought I said enough to show value, even though it was not perfect. I walked away happy with the product because I showed value. Yeah,
oh, I love that. I love that. Mother Teresa has a quote that says, and I'll get this not exactly right, but don't leave people better than when you found them. And that's being of
yeah,
value, right? So everything we do
yeah.
has a value and a purpose to be of service to others.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We all have that. I think Dr. Martin Luther King said that. We all can serve. That is, we all can be of service to someone other than ourselves. How do you do that? When you tell your little nephew, you know, ask him questions about how he did in school, or tell or reflect back to him, I can see that you're a very smart guy, that kind of thing. You're of service whenever you uplift someone. And we surely live at a time now, in my judgment, obviously, where people need to be uplifted.
We do. I always say, and people can argue with me if I'm right or wrong, but I think we all have a purpose, and that purpose is to be of service. How we do that is individual to each and every one of us, right? If
Hmm.
you are a singer, your songs are of service to people. If you're a writer or whatever it is that you do, if you're doing it to be of service, that is all of our purpose.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. We all came to learn. Life is a learning experience, and we all came to serve. And when you begin to serve, I think you're at that higher level. When you're serving somebody other than yourself, it means that you're evolving as a being, evolving into your true nature. When you're there, some people are there just for them. I made my million, that's it, or whatever. But when you're there for others, I think that's a higher human being.
Mm, mm. Um, I heard once somebody say, sometimes that passion or you doing something for others, you might be an answer to their prayer, right? So
Hmm.
when we don't step into our purpose and step into our calling, somebody else somewhere might not
Yeah,
get what it is that we have to offer.
yeah. That's for sure. That is so true. Because in my case, I'm not sure if you got that far in the book. Um, when we started this program, I'll say it, I had my walker behind me because I can't move in space without holding it or riding in my wheelchair. So I can walk. So, someone sees me if I go to the store, they see this guy in this little scooter, probably thinking, boy, he's not up to much. But if you have a conversation with him, then they discover, oh, he is up to something. So yeah, someone else sees me who is in a similar situation may discover I can do much. Even though I have a physical disability, or like the blind person I mentioned earlier, this guy got a master's degree. Someone else sees that and say, I don't have to be limited by my situation. I can be more of that, and by doing that, by being who I can be, that could inspire somebody else. Yeah.
Oh, that's so powerful. That is so powerful. Well, I mean, again, I am so grateful to have you on my show. I'm so grateful that we are connected. I mean, this is a beautiful connection. Um, as we kind of wrap this up, I want you to first of all tell everybody where they can find you, where they can subscribe to your podcast, where they can get your book. And then I also want you to leave people with something that you think is just so important that you feel like you need to share that with them.
Okay. Well, firstly, the Possibility Action Network podcast. The Possibility Action Network podcast is on YouTube, and I'm reachable. In my show notes, you'll find my contact information. So if you want to reach out, join the Possibility Action Network. We're up to some things going forward, Possibility Hour, Possibility Mastermind. If you want to be a part of that, just reach out to me and let me know. The book, Break Free from Emotional Distress, and I'm glad you are allowing me to mention it here. It's a practical guide. And it's a guide. You'll do some work if you go through the book with integrity. And it's also my personal journey. So I tell you the stuff that I went through, and this hopefully will inspire you. The book can be found on Amazon, Ingram Sparks, Barnes and Noble, and other online platforms. Pass the word. I think this book is going to touch somebody, and I'll share this story, Don, as we close. Just one story. Back in I think it was about 1981. I was in Dayton, Ohio, and I was drowning in despair, drowning in thinking that I was not enough, drowning in thinking I could not be a professional, an academic, just drowning in disbelief. I was so lost, I didn't even know my name. And I went to a public library, and I mentioned this in the preface of this book. I went to a public library, and somehow a book called me. I'm in the self-help section. The book must have called me because it was a small book. I don't think I would have found it without the energy, as I recount in the preface of this book, called out to me, and I found it and I grabbed the book and I began to read through it. The book was entitled Notes to Myself, My Struggles to Become a Person, where the author, Hugh Prather, began to talk about his life, talk about his relationship, talk about his marriage, talk about people in his lives and his fears and his doubts. And something in the book settled me. Just holding it and flipping through it. So I couldn't have written an essay about it when I left the library, but there was something in this book that at the energetic level that touched me. And look, last year when I was contemplating this book, my preface, and then the book title just came back to me. Now this is 1982, do the math. You see, that's a long time ago. I was in my late 20s, I believe it was. I'm now 71 years old. His book came back to me. And so that's what I hope this book will do for someone, that it'll get into the right hands, and when they touch it, that they are somehow settled, and that they'll get this feeling that they too can make it through. I'll say one last thing. You don't have to be down and out to read this book and benefit from it. If you're in a relationship, if you're an employer, work with people on your job, I think there is something in this book that's going to speak to individuals. And that's my closing comment about it, as you've asked me to share.
Wow. Well, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for your podcast. Thank you for uplifting and inspiring others. You've done that for me. And I truly appreciate having you on my podcast. Again, you're my first one-on-one interview on this podcast, so thank you. Um, so thank you for joining The Secrets of Being. Please check out Stephen's book. It will definitely uplift and inspire. And again, there's practical exercises for you. So it's not just you're reading, you're doing, and learning about yourself. So thank you for joining The Secrets of Being, and we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Secrets of Being podcast. We appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more inspiring content. For further inspiration, visit thesecretsofbeing.com and join our community. Until next time, stay inspired and keep unlocking the secrets of being.